What's up, everybody? Mike Walter with another behind the scenes music story of a song that you probably play at your events. You might not admit to it, but you ever play Mony Mony? You ever think what that means? Mony Mony? What the heck does it mean, right? It actually doesn't mean anything, but here's the story behind it. Tommy James, lead singer and songwriter for Tommy James and the Shondells, was basically a rare case in the 60s. He was rare because he was a rock and roller who was American. You think about the 60s, most of the rock and roll that was being produced were the British invasion bands, right? The Beatles, the Stones, the Who, the Kinks, all those great bands that were coming across the pond and breaking in the States. There were very few American bands, rock and roll bands, certainly. Motown had a huge share, but very few rock and roll bands. But Tommy James was one of them. He had a couple of hits early on. And then in 1968, he sat down to write what he called a throwback party song. He just wanted to write an old-time rock and roller, like something that came out of the 50s or early 60s. Matter of fact, Louie Louie was a big inspiration for him. He wanted to write something that sounded a little bit like just a party anthem. And his thought was to have a female name, 2 syllables, and just repeat it right after, kind of like Louie Louie, Mary, Mary, Carrie, Carrie, whatever. So he sat down to write this song, and he had everything laid out, the beat, the instruments, the rhythm, the lyrics, but he couldn't come up with a name. He's racking his brain. He needed a 2-syllable name for this chorus of this song. He has an apartment in New York City. Finally, he's just like at the end of his rope. He sits out in his apartment, he's smoking a cigarette, and his apartment overlooked a sign for the Mutual of New York Insurance Company, M-O-N-Y. And he just saw that in the distance and he said, Mony, Mony. Maybe I'll just make up my own word. And that's how he came up with Mony Mony. So Tommy James releases the song. It gets to number 3 on the chart, so it's a fairly big hit for him. That's in 1968. And then 13 years later, Billy Idol decides to cover the song. His studio version actually went to number 7 when it was initially released, which is a fairly big hit. But then he released a live version of it a little bit later. That went to number 1. And most people now think of Mony Mony as the Billy Idol song. I think he made it more famous, especially more recently. But it was originally a Tommy James song, and the way he came up with Mony Mony was just looking at the sign for the Mutual of New York Insurance Company.